Hi, welcome to another episode of Spectator Sports. I'm your host, Sebastian Fonseca, and we're going to be breaking down some EPL action and the close of the NBA regular season. To start, yesterday we had Everton take on Manchester United in a 1-0 victory to Everton, providing 3 very valuable points to Everton's hopes of abstaining from relegation for next season. And for Frank Lampard's side, they started off pretty strong, didn't really finish some really good chances to open on, but they managed to get an early goal and go into halftime up 1-0 and played a very good defensive format moving forward. It seems that United's really out of ideas with creativity, and they just didn't really have that kind of spark, and unfortunately for them, their Champions League hopes are going to be dwindling, and even their chances at even Europa League are dwindling too. As the standings stand as of now in the Premier League table, they are in 7th place, which currently is going to put them even outside of Europa League play moving forward. So if I'm a United fan, I'm going to feel a little iffy about the fixtures moving forward. Of course, there's still plenty of time to turn this around. They have the talent to do so. So we will see if United can creep up and even salvage a Europa League spot for next season. In other action from Saturday, Chelsea thrashed Southampton 6-0, including a brace from Timo Werner and a brace from Mason Mount, along with goals from Marcos Alonso and Kai Havertz. And in this matchup, it was pretty early on that Chelsea showed their dominance with a different front three attack than we're used to seeing, getting Timo Werner to start. And he had the most Timo Werner type of game where he hit the left post and the crossbar within the first, I think, 5 minutes or so. And it was just pretty hilarious to see. As many Chelsea fans and Premier League fans know, that Werner hasn't really been able to integrate himself in his 2 years here at Chelsea. And he has the inability to finish some chances. I think the first one off the left post was just simply unlucky, and the second one off the bar just didn't really get his head on it in the right position, and it just hit the bar at that unfortunate angle and didn't get in. And but he was able to get a very good goal off a brilliant run and finished his first goal of the match the hardest way possible, but thankfully he was able to get on the board, and at that point it was kind of off and running for Chelsea. Chelsea was up about 3-0 within the first 22 minutes from goals from 3 different players, and by halftime they were up 4-0, and it was very close for Werner to have a hat-trick. He wasn't able to finish a shot in the second half to complete his hat-trick, and he actually ended up hitting the right post too. So he hit the left post, the crossbar, and the right post. And this was actually all in the first half too. And I need some people to research this for me, but if that's ever happened, I'm sure that's happened maybe in a game, but in a first half or any half, please look that up for me. I love to hear if that's been done by any other player. But he did provide 2 goals, so at least he's able to make up for that. But it could have very well been much more than just a brace. Mason Mount hit 2 goals of himself, as previously mentioned. I gotta say that he's been looking a lot better yesterday than he did against Real Madrid. He had some good looks against Madrid, but just couldn't really keep it on target. But yesterday he was spot on in finishing the matches and the opportunities that he had. He came in with a different haircut, so maybe it's some good luck his way. So let's hope he keeps it and fuels some kind of comeback for Chelsea as they approach their second leg matchup against Real Madrid on Tuesday. Going to Sunday's action, obviously it was headlined by Liverpool and Man City at the Etihad Stadium, and it didn't disappoint by any means whatsoever. Within the first 15 minutes, it was already 1-1. De Bruyne started off the scoring affairs with a goal himself within the first 5 minutes, and then that was countered by Diogo Jota at the 13th minute to level the scores at 1-1. In the 36th minute, we had a nice goal by a brilliant finish by Gabriel Jesus, who ended his 15-match goalless streak in outstanding fashion, I must say. I haven't seen a finish like that in quite some time, and to get it around a keeper like Alisson, it was really quite a scene to watch from that standpoint. Sadio Mane was able to level the affair right after halftime with a brilliant finish to level the score at 2-2. And we had a really good set of near chances by City from that point moving onwards. We thought we had the go-ahead goal with Raheem Sterling, but he was in fact deemed offside. Very good call by the VAR. And then there was a kind of a half chance by a brilliant ball across on the 3-on-2 break by Kevin De Bruyne. Unfortunately, Mahrez wasn't able to finish that cross. He decided to chip it, which I think was the right way to go about it, but just didn't get the right strike on it, and it just carried over the bar for Liverpool's sake. So as the EPL standings are through now, right now, it still maintains a City 1-point advantage, with both sides needing... It's still going to be a 1-point affair, with Liverpool leading with 1 point. And there's only a handful of matches left in the Premier League season, so there's going to be many big storylines to finish, as each team has 6 matches left. And actually, we get to see these two clash in the FA Cup semi-final in 6 days. So these two sides actually have one more juicy matchup before the season ends, so I cannot wait. Moving on now, we're going to talk about the NBA season wrapping up. Quite some juicy action with the NBA coming to a close. The regular season has just ended on Sunday. We know now some of the matchups that are going to be going on for the play-in tournament and even the playoffs themselves. To go in on the back end of the week from the previous recording, the Utah Jazz had a disappointing finish to their regular season. They've definitely been out of sorts as of late. You can see the rift between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert kind of take the forefront of that. We've heard the rumors, obviously, between that, but they're definitely showing themselves on the court more and more as the time continues to go on. The Utah Jazz blew another lead, this time to the Phoenix Suns, and this really takes away all chances of them hosting a first-round matchup in the playoffs. And at the time of this recording, they can either be the 5th or 6th seed in the NBA playoffs. I was doing some research, and I actually stumbled upon this on NBA Twitter, and I thought it was pretty interesting about this rift between Mitchell and Gobert. The funniest thing was that it turns out that Donovan Mitchell, he actually has a career high in assists this year, but he's averaging 2 passes, and I'm not talking about assists, just 2 passes to Rudy Gobert per game, and these two shared the floor for about 30 minutes, and that's gotta be so wild to me. You can credit Jason Maples for finding this stat. I don't know where he got it from, but I'm gonna give it to him on his Twitter page at JJMaples55_MST. Thank you for providing that great stat. That was really good work. And the Jazz, like I said, have been on kind of this downswing towards the end of the season, and it's just been really disappointing. This is the team that finished number 1 in the regular season last year. They had disappointing finishes to their seasons as of late, and I think we need to start talking about them blowing it up. They've been at this kind of retooling since the Gordon Hayward era came to an end, with a acquiring an even better talent in the 2017 NBA draft with Donovan Mitchell. He came onto the scene, bursted onto the scene. Should have probably won the Rookie of the Year in 2018, but thanks to the NBA's rules, Ben Simmons was actually able to win that award due to that, him being his first year of actually playing in the league. But if you're going to talk about the same draft, definitely Donovan Mitchell was the best rookie out of that draft class in 2017. And since then, he was able to provide a very astounding upset of the OKC Thunder in the 2018 NBA playoffs when they upset the OKC Thunder, featuring not just Russell Westbrook but also Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And that was a pretty talented team that a lot of people thought that the Warriors would be challenged by this Thunder team, and maybe Russell Westbrook would be able to exact his revenge on KD leaving the Thunder back in 2016. However, after that upset, they handled their own against the top-seeded Houston Rockets at the time, but they were bowed out in 5 games. But still, that was a really good stepping point. They got to the same point that they were the previous season back in 2017. And with kind of a newish nucleus, you thought this team was going to be on the rise. Quinn Snyder is obviously a great head coach. They had adequate pieces with Joe Ingles. They also had Bogdanovic as well, obviously Gobert. And you thought that they had something in the making. Unfortunately, in the 2019 NBA playoffs, they faced the Houston Rockets again, this time in a 4-5 matchup, and this time bowed up in 5 games again. So an earlier playoff exit in that season, and then the following season they played the Denver Nuggets in a 3-6 matchup and had the 3-seeded Denver Nuggets up 3-1, and unfortunately they blew that lead going into the 2020 playoffs, the bubble playoffs that people want to refer to. So then they were able to retool, get back together, keep that same nucleus going, and in the 2021 playoffs they started off again very strong, finished the season as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, and they controlled home court for the Western Conference playoffs. However, yet again, they were not able to get to the conference finals, this time bowing out to the Los Angeles Clippers in 6 games. And after 2 games, it was tied 2-2. We just heard that Kawhi Leonard was going to be out for the remainder of the series, which turned out to be his ACL injury. And at that point, you thought, they had 2 games out of 3 to host in Utah, and they were bound to win 2 of those. However, they lost both of those. They came out flat in game 5, thinking that they kind of had that game in the bag, and they ended up losing to Los Angeles at that point, and they had to go on the road to Staples Center and fish out a game that they unfortunately weren't able to do. And they had their opportunities in game 6 too. They blew, I believe, what was a 25-point lead that they held in the first half, and unfortunately they weren't able to hold on to that lead. They choked that away. And the way the season is going now, I would say definitely with the first round exit, that's kind of like the icing on the cake that it's time to blow up the Utah Jazz. And I don't know if that means them trading Gobert or trading Donovan Mitchell. I'd say probably they want to lean on holding Donovan Mitchell because he's kind of the more flexible piece, and you want to trade Rudy Gobert for maybe a bevy of pieces. But the problem is when you're trading an asset in any sport, but particularly the NBA, you're going to get a lot of pieces back, picks back, but is that going to really help you now? It's maybe going to retool you, but not really sure what they're really going to do. Utah's kind of stuck right now in the thick of a very talented Western Conference. Going to other NBA action, there was the Sixers taking on the Raptors, and this was up in Toronto on Friday night, and we saw the Raptors start off a little flat, but they were able to respond very well against the 76ers, and they were able to pull off a very convincing win, which would possibly be a first round matchup preview. The way the seeding lines up, we'll probably see the Sixers have to play Toronto in the first round, and I'm going to be really excited to see that matchup. It seems that Nick Nurse seems to have a pretty good idea of how to defend the Sixers with Embiid. Obviously, he's the best player on the court, and I think a lot of analysts, a lot of pundits would pick the Sixers just given their talent to get by the Raptors in a 7-game series. The fact is that they're going to be without Matisse Thybulle for the vaccine mandate that Canada has induced. It turns out that Matisse is actually unvaccinated, and he's no longer eligible to play in any of Toronto's home games. So they're only going to get him as a part-time player, and that's a pretty valuable wing defender that they have. Obviously, Toronto likes to run things outside as well. Fred VanVleet was obviously their all-star this year. He's a smaller guard, so Matisse could definitely impose his will on a smaller guard like a Fred VanVleet. Obviously, they'll have other players to deploy on him like Tyrese Maxey, but he's no Matisse Thybulle by any means. No, not even like a all-NBA defensive player that was last year. We also saw the Celtics take on the Bucks. Jason Tatum did sit out for that game, but the Celtics still brought it in a very, very strong manner. They played with tenacity. They played with desperation. They didn't bow down to a Bucks team that was pretty much fully healthy. They had all their pieces in. And I gotta say, given the matchup, the scare that they gave the Bucks, this is possibly a very enticing second-round matchup that we'd see these two teams clash moving forward. Giannis had a very solid game, and I think he's gonna be primed and ready for another deep postseason run. No matter how the Bucks match up with that, I think they would be able to match up pretty well with the Celtics, and probably would go 6 or 7 games if I had to look into that. Other Friday NBA action, we had the Cavs take on the Brooklyn Nets, and the Nets are still in pursuit of the 7th seed, which they were able to clinch. And this game against the Cavs was able to play big dividends towards that. Even though Evan Mobley came back after a 5-game absence, we did see the Cavs still struggled to maintain pace with the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant put on a show once again with 36 points for the game. Another great showing as he's seems ready for another postseason run as well. With them being the 7th seed into the play-in tournament, that means that all they have to do is win and they get to play the 2 seed. And they'll be ending up playing actually those very same Cleveland Cavaliers back again at the Barclays Arena. So at the time of this recording, we know the final standings for the Eastern Conference, and we can go into at least a play-in side of the Eastern Conference where the Brooklyn Nets are going to be hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers. And on paper, it seems the way the form that the Cavs have been playing as of late, I'd say the Brooklyn Nets would be able to hold on to the 7th seed and book a spot to play against the Boston Celtics in the first round. And in the 9-10 matchup, we have the Atlanta Hawks hosting the Charlotte Hornets. Atlanta is coming off a little bit of a disappointing season compared to what they did last year. You thought they would build on that Eastern Conference final appearance and take that a leap forward to becoming an elite team in the Eastern Conference. However, they had to settle for the 9th seed this year. Trae Young is still playing very well, and I'd say that they would have the favorable matchup against the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte's been great, and it's a shame that the East is just so packed this year. LaMelo has made his all-star game. Michael Bridges is potentially a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and they just have so many young pieces. Unfortunately, I do think I'd lean going with the Hawks if I had to pick between the Hawks or the Hornets for the 9-10 matchup. And the way that the play-in tournament is formatted, that would mean that they would end up playing the loser of the 7-8 matchup, who I previously predicted would be the Cleveland Cavs. And the Cavs would be hosting in that scenario. And based on, again, the more recent form of the two teams, in the last 10 games, the Cleveland Cavaliers have been 3-7. and the Atlanta Hawks have actually been 7-3. And based on that form, and given the more talented roster, they've had deeper playoff experience. The Cavs have just gotten here. I would say I would lean towards the Hawks leapfrogging the Cleveland Cavaliers and booking a first-round matchup against the Miami Heat. Given that, that would mean that we would have the playoff series locked up. Of course, when they're confirmed, I'm going to do a better preview video, but we can take a better look into the actual matchups that we know at this current point in time. And right now we know that we have the 76ers at the Raptors and the Bucks hosting the Chicago Bulls. A little deeper dive into the Sixers-Raptors series. The recent form also of James Harden has been greatly concerning. It seems that he's lost a step, he's slowed down. He depends on that first step to really make that drive to the basket, whether to promote a lob to his big on the other side of that, or shoot a very high percentage floater in the lane, or even draw a foul. He's still getting to the line at kind of his normal clip, which is about 10 to 11 free throw attempts a game. However, his percentages in the paint have dipped drastically, and his field goal percentage has dipped even more. He's actually shooting in the month of April below 40%, and that's definitely concerning for that big trade piece that you traded at trade deadline back in February. So I would say the Sixers are going to be in for a long series. Nick Nurse has had the Sixers number, particularly Joel Embiid's number too, not to mention back in 2019, albeit with Kawhi Leonard. They played a similar Sixers team led by Joel Embiid, and they won in 7 games, took the bounces of all bounces type of shot. Nick Nurse is a very good defensive mind. He's been revolutionizing basketball with the format and the lineups that he's been inducing for the Toronto Raptors. Basically what Toronto does is they have Fred VanVleet as their point guard, who's more of the smaller point guard, maybe 6 feet on a good day. And the rest of their players are more like these long, lengthy defenders who range between about 6'7" with about a 7-foot wingspan. You have OG Anunoby, you have Precious Achiuwa, you have Scotty Barnes, there's Pascal Siakam, and then they have Chris Boucher off the bench. There's so many different guys that are just similar body types, and it's going to be interesting, the matchups that they can throw. They can definitely do a lot of cross matchups as well. Scotty Barnes has put on a very strong end to his rookie campaign, and I believe, in my humble opinion, that he should be Rookie of the Year for the 2022 NBA season. We'll see if that will actually happen. Obviously, Cade Cunningham has had a hell of a season as well. So has Evan Mobley, but I think Evan has missed too many games, and Cade's kind of picked it up a little bit too little too late. I'd say that Scotty has played more consistent out of any one of those 3 candidates, and for the longest stretch of time as well. And he's another forward that is kind of perfect for this Nick Nurse defensive scheme. So they can deploy a bevy of players to go at James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Danny Green. So it'll be a very long fought series. I think I feel kind of bold, and I would lean towards having the Raptors win, but we'll see. We will see. I'm not going to make any formal predictions just yet until the play-in tournament is concluded, and I'll give a more detailed prediction when that time comes. The other matchup that we do know at this point of this recording is the Milwaukee Bucks hosting a 3-6 matchup against the Chicago Bulls. And Chicago is another one of the NBA's more disappointing teams. It's a little bit weird to call maybe a disappointing team given the original expectations. When they made the signing for DeMar DeRozan, you think they would be maybe the bottom 4 of the final 8 teams to make the Eastern Conference playoffs, but they started off very strong. They had the number 1 seed for a point in time, then a top 4 seed for an even greater amount of time, but I'd say post January, from February onwards, DeMar DeRozan's play has dipped. They've had injuries. Obviously, Lonzo Ball is now out for the rest of the season due to his knee injury, and they've lost Alex Caruso for different stretches. So those are pretty significant losses. Obviously, it's definitely put things in a little bit of disarray in terms of chemistry and just the regular scheme that Chicago started off with in terms of defensive matchups. Lonzo Ball is a very good wing defender. He can probably guard positions 1, 2, 3 pretty comfortably given his length. He's a very good play creator too for slashers at the rim, whether it be Caruso, even Vucevic diving towards the basket, creating outside looks for Zach LaVine, finding DeMar DeRozan, and it's kind of been in disarray since his absence. So the Chicago Bulls have dipped all the way from one point being the 1 seed. Now they're going to be the 6th seed, and they're slotted against the defending champs, poised to make another deep playoff run with Giannis leading the group. I'd say that given how the regular season has matched up between these two teams, it seems that the Bucks have had the Bulls' number, and I think they might be able to win this series actually quite comfortably, and they would probably get some much-needed rest to play a more underrated possible 2-7 matchup. Assuming that Brooklyn wins the 7-8 matchup, I'd say Boston would be able to come out of that, but of course, let's go into a deeper preview once the play-in tournament has concluded. And in the Western Conference, we do know the play-in tournament seeds. At 7, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they'll be hosting the Los Angeles Clippers. And in the 9-10 matchup, we're going to have the New Orleans Pelicans hosting the San Antonio Spurs. Going to the 7-8 matchup, I believe, based on how things are going, the Timberwolves have had a lot more consistency in terms of their lineups, and in a one-off, I think that the Timberwolves would be able to hold on to that 7 seed and end up going to book a spot against the 2-seeded Memphis Grizzlies. And the loser of that, obviously, would be the LA Clippers, who just got Paul George towards the tail end of the season, and seems that he's been fitting in well to the roster once again, and he seems to be back in pretty good form, and I don't know how deep a run they could make. Obviously, they have to make it out of the play-in tournament, but given who's left in the play-in tournament would be the Spurs or the Pelicans. The Pelicans they're talented. They have some good pieces, and the Spurs are a nice story, but I don't think they'll be able to get by the Pelicans. So if it's between the 8 and the 9, I'd say that the Clippers would be able to hold on to that 8 seed and win and book a spot against the Phoenix Suns. It's been a good season for the Spurs. I'd say that DeJounte Murray has made those leaps to becoming the future of the Spurs team. He made an all-star team this year as well. And Pop, don't know when he's going to hang it up, but if this is indeed his last year, it would be a nice little story. I mean, just to get into the play-in tournament for sure. Obviously, you want to see him on the bench and coach the Spurs for many more seasons. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get to see more Coach Pop going forward. And the Pelicans, obviously, they've been without Zion Williamson for the entirety of the season, but I think they've been able to find some new pieces as well into their lineup. Brandon Ingram's been a little bit in and out of the lineup, and he hasn't quite regained that 2020 All-Star form, but ever since he's returned, he's been pretty good, I'd say. Probably take on that leading scorer role. They have some other good pieces as well. And that's it for another episode of Spectator Sports with Sebastian Fonseca. I so appreciate everybody tuning in. Please like and subscribe for more content moving forward. If you want, hit that bell for the notification so you know when the new episodes are going to be airing. We'll have some more detailed preview of the NBA playoffs once the seeding finally formalizes and we have the exact matchups for a deeper analysis. So thanks, and I'll see you next time.